What Azure certifications do you need as a developer? Today find out from a senior developer who has more than 10 Azure certifications. Certifications as a developer is very important, especially when you're in an industry like myself, which requires you to keep up to date on the services that Azure offers, which an Azure certification can provide. This can aid you in gaining your next promotion or even a new job. It's not all about the shiny badge, it's also about the learning that an Azure certification can provide and allowing you to implement and develop on top of these Azure services. The first thing that we need to go into is the 4 levels of Azure certifications that Microsoft offers. Let's go into the first level of Azure certifications. Fundamental certifications are best for someone that's new to Azure or their chosen area of Azure. These certifications focus on describing services inside Azure and don't require much hands-on knowledge. These certifications help you prepare you for other types of certification that are role-based or specialty certifications, but these are not a prerequisite for them. The cost of the exams are the lowest cost out of the 4 levels of the certifications, but these are still not cheap and require some monetary investment. Moving on, we have Azure Associate certifications. These are for more experienced users of Azure, focusing around roles that someone would undertake in Azure. For example, a developer. Microsoft recommends at least 1 or 2 years experience in Azure to undertake this exam, but requires no other prerequisites to actually pass the exam. The cost of these exams are a lot higher than the fundamentals exams, but are the same as every other level of Azure certifications. Now, moving on to the highest level of certification that you can get in Azure, which is expert certification. These require you to have a selected associate certification to pass it. Microsoft recommends to have advanced knowledge and experience of the chosen area of the certification before undertaking the exam, because passing this certification will demonstrate that you're a subject matter expert in the selected certification. The cost of the exam is exactly the same as the associate level certifications. Moving on to the final level of certifications, which is a similar level to the associate level certification. This is the specialty certification. These focus on even smaller set of services than the associate level certification. For example, specific type of developer or technology. But like the associate level certifications, requires no prerequisites to pass the exam. This level of certifications cost the exact same as associate certifications and expert certifications. So let's have a look at Azure Fundamental certifications. There are 3 Azure Fundamental certifications that I would recommend. These 3 Azure certifications will give you a good baseline and ensure you have some understanding of most of the services on the Azure platform. So let's have a look. So the first one I would recommend is Azure Fundamentals. This certification comes highly recommended if you're very new to Azure. This certification details knowledge of cloud concepts, Azure services, Azure workloads, security and privacy in Azure, as well as Azure pricing and support. This certification also goes into other cloud concepts including networking, storage, compute, application support and application development. The next certification that may be good to look at is the Azure AI Fundamentals, which comes highly recommended if you're new to Azure AI. This certification allows you to demonstrate your knowledge on machine learning and artificial intelligence workloads and how to implement them on Azure, giving you a basic understanding of Azure's artificial intelligence capabilities. The final fundamental certification is Azure Data Fundamental. This is highly recommended if you're someone that is new to Azure's data services. This fundamental certification will give you foundation knowledge of data concepts and how they are implemented using Azure's data services. Now let's have a look at Azure Associate Level certifications. For me, I would recommend a total of 4 Azure Associate Level certifications. So let's have a look at the first one. The first one that I would recommend is the Azure Developer Associate. This is the core Azure Developer certification on the platform. If you pass this certification, this will demonstrate that you have subject matter expertise in designing, building, testing and maintaining cloud applications on the Azure platform. making this certification the most important one for someone who is an Azure developer. Moving on to the next associate level certification, which is the Azure AI Engineer, which is a highly recommended certification for Azure developers due to the artificial intelligence knowledge that is demonstrated in the certification. By passing this certification, you should have subject matter expertise using cognitive services, machine learning and knowledge mining, allowing you to architect and implement solutions that involve natural language processing, speech, computer vision and conversational AI. The next Azure certification that I recommend is the Azure Administrator. This is highly recommended for Azure developers because by passing this certification, it will give you subject matter expertise implementing, managing and monitoring an organization's Azure environment. The final Azure Associate Level certification that I recommend is the Azure Security Engineer Associate. Passing this certification will give you subject matter knowledge implementing security controls that protects identity, access, data, applications and network in the cloud or hybrid environments. Now let's talk about the highest level certifications and what I would recommend, which is the expert level certification. There's currently only 2 Azure expert level certifications, which I would recommend at some point as an Azure developer that you would do both. So let's have a look at them. So the first expert certification that we're going to detail is the DevOps Engineer Expert Certification. This is a core developer certification as you can't avoid implementing DevOps practices on your projects. By passing this certification, you will show you have subject matter expertise working with people, process and technologies to continuously deliver business value. This means you'll have good knowledge of DevOps processes and implement DevOps concepts like continuous integration, continuous delivery and having a good release management strategy, which is very important as an Azure developer. It is important to note before undertaking the Azure DevOps Expert certification, it does require you to have at least one of these associate level certifications, this being the Azure Administrator Associate or the Azure DevOps Associate. Now if we move on to the next and final expert level certification, which is the Azure Solutions Architect Expert, which is highly recommended as you start getting up to the senior level of Azure developer. Passing this certification provides advanced experience and knowledge of IT operations, including networking, visualization, identity security, business continuity, disaster recovery, data platforms, and governance. This certification should give you knowledge of how to manage decisions in each of the affected areas of an overall solution. In addition, you should have experience in Azure administration, Azure development, and DevOps processes. Like the DevOps Engineer Expert, you also are required to have a prerequisite associate level certification, but with this one, it's only the Azure Administrator Associate. So now we're going to move on to the Speciality certifications, and with this I would only really recommend one certification that a developer may want to do. For me, this will be Azure IoT Developer. I would recommend this for developers who are going to need to integrate and work on IoT devices. It's not all Azure developers, it'll be worth tackling the certification. If you pass this certification, it will show subject matter expertise in implementing the configuration and coding tasks that are required to create and maintain cloud and the edge portion of the IoT solution. And again, with this, there's no prerequisites and undertake this exam. So that's it, detailing each certification. And now I'm going to look how you can create a certification plan over a 4-year period. So let's go straight in and have a look at a possible 4-year certification plan that you can possibly use. When making a certification plan, it's always recommended that you tailor it to your needs and environment that you might be going into. This could be that certain certifications are more needed at certain companies than, say, what I've detailed on the certification plan. So I recommend swapping out different certifications at certain points to ensure that you gain full benefit of passing the certification. The first thing we need to do as a new developer, gain a good foundation. This means completing the fundamental certifications that have been recommended in this video. Start off with the Azure Fundamentals, then move on to the Azure AI Fundamentals, and then Azure Data Fundamentals. So this should be done all within the first year of being a developer. I think it's plausible that you can do this within 6 months, but I didn't want to make it too tasking on people. After you've built your good foundation, time to develop your core skills as a developer. This means we're around the first year mark trying to go for the Azure Developer certification, and then I'm following this up around the 2-year mark going for the DevOps Engineer Expert certification. These 2 certifications will provide you the core skills that is required as an Azure developer. Moving on from this, we now want to try and expand our skills and demonstrate our knowledge across the platform. A good place to start with this would be the Azure AI Engineer, which will give you AI services that Azure offers, allowing you to implement these services inside your applications. After the Azure AI Engineer Associate, I would then move on to the Azure Administrator. The reason why I would move on to this is because it's a prerequisite before getting the Azure Solutions Architect, which is a good certification to have as someone that's getting towards a senior developer. So following off the Azure Administrator, it would also be a good idea to then follow that up with the Azure Solutions Architect, which will give you both Azure Expert certification on the platform. I've included the Azure Security Engineer and the Azure IoT Engineer as optional extras, which are recommended based on different scenarios. So personally, every Azure developer needs a good amount of base knowledge, and when it comes to security, which Azure Security Engineer will provide. When it comes to the Azure IT developer, if you are needing to implement IoT devices in any way in Azure, then this will be a good recommended certification to hold. As you can see, this certification plan is quite comprehensive and will take you from 0 to 10 certifications over a 4-year time period. But also, please adapt it to your current situation and work environment. One of the many questions you may have now, where's the best place to get resources to help pass these certifications? I already have a video which directs you into some really good places of where you can get free resources that will aid you in passing these certifications or generally learning Microsoft technologies. So I'll provide a link, and I hope you enjoyed that video too. So what do you think of this certification plan? Do you think it'll take you to where you need to be as an Azure developer? If you have any comments about it or any questions, please leave a comment down below, or better yet, join our Discord. So I hope you enjoyed the video,